Thank you for staying with us. The presidential election has come and gone, with President-elect Bola Tinubu emerging victorious. The president-elect, who was also a former governor of Lagos State under the umbrella of the All Progressives Congress, has made numerous promises, and going by his antecedents, there are high hopes that the country will experience remarkable development under his administration. His 80 pages manifesto of renewed hope, which prioritizes security, agriculture, education, import and export, is set to usher Nigeria into an era of growth and stability. Well, joining us via Zoom is the spokesperson, Media and Publicity Directorate, Independent Campaign Council, ICC, Barrister Olumide Braithwaite. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Good morning, Nigerians. Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Right. Now, after the elections and the president-elect emerged, a lot of persons have said that the issues that shaped the outcome of the elections has further divided us, showing how expanding the fault lines across ethnic, religious, and all other divides. And so there has been cause for the president-elect to look at a government of national unity. But he has said that he is looking at a government of national competence to address the challenges Nigeria is facing. What are your impressions of his decision to say that he is going the way of national competence instead of a government of national unity?
Thank you very much. Competence has always been something that has bothered us in this part of the world. When you talk about putting square pegs in round holes, you could make a case to say that that has bedeviled previous administrations. I think Nigerians have to be optimistic. I think Nigerians have to look inward. In other words, we have to put our best foot forward. And in so doing, I believe that the president-elect's administration will augur well for that. In terms of competence, going by the president-elect's trajectory, going by his past administrations, for example, in Lagos State, you will see that competence being practiced there in the various arms of government. And I think we need that more in Nigeria now today than at any other time, because we do have major, what I would term major challenges. We had Boris Johnson, the former UK president, who was in the country yesterday, talking about unleashing Nigeria's potential. And I believe that the president-elect's cabinet, his administration, his governing arm, will certainly address that at the highest level.
All right. As it is, of course, it's obvious that there is no single administration that can fix Nigeria's problems, because there's so much of it. And Nigerians have been waiting desperately over the years, or even decades, to have issues settled. Whether you talk about power, you talk about major infrastructure, roads, you're talking about education, you talk about health, you talk about foreign policy, aviation. Whatever the thing is, every aspect of Nigeria needs emergency assistance right now. But there are some hopes and high expectations that Tinubu knows the way of money. He knows the way of governance. And Nigerians are looking forward to that thing that he's going to do to change things. What should Nigerians expect from him first? See, knowing that he can't handle or solve all Nigeria's problems, but what areas do you think are going to be that priority for him and for Nigerians?
Thank you very much. That's a question that begs to be answered because we are all anxious to get Nigeria back working. Certainly, I think that the economy is an area that Nigerians can expect some of the savvy policies and certainly I believe that his experience and track record gives us some comfort in terms of revamping the economy. Security also is another area of challenge. And going by the outgoing administration, I believe that the incoming administration will not only continue addressing the security concerns in those parts of the country, but also improve on them. Education, as you mentioned, with our children, they were out of school for several months last year. And I know that that is also high on the priority list of Mr. President-elect. And I think with our young population, when I say young, I say 18 to 40, certainly education has to be addressed in a very much more aggressive manner so that we don't have institutions of higher learning closed and our teachers, our unions are adequately reimbursed so that we can fulfill our potential in terms of the youth. We've seen how the elections have placed the young population essentially in the driving seat. And I believe that our new president is quite conversant with that after having governed Lagos for 8 years and also improving on the lot of the youths in Lagos State, I would argue. But on a federal and national level, I think the president is going to do very well in terms of surprising us with some of these policies and innovations that Nigerians can come to expect of him.
Right. In his acceptance speech, he said that he heard the youth loud and clear, so to speak, and that he was going to ensure that in terms of education, that their 4 years is 4 years. And now you mentioned that he has to address the matter of education aggressively, much more aggressive manner. I want you to paint perhaps a picture of what you would like to see him do with regards to the matter of education when you talk about aggressiveness at addressing the challenges we are facing in that sector.
Yes. I believe that Nigerians, as a people, we're very smart. We are renowned for being smart abroad, where maybe not for the right reasons necessarily, but Nigerians are smart and we are not fools. In terms of education, I believe that there will be more international cooperation. There will be more funding from the government. In terms of our infrastructure, I think that can also, our educational infrastructure, I believe that can also be improved. And from what we know about our president-elect, he's one that takes on challenges head on. And I believe that with the advent of technology and the internet, there has to be more of an investment in technology. And I think that's going to drive the educational revolution that I think we are about to embark on. Of course, being in Lagos State or coming from Lagos, we have that, how I would call it, high expectations. We go from the free education under our past governor, Lateef Jakonde, And I know that education is another area that Mr. President-elect does not want Nigerians to lag behind. So I'm sure that it'll be all hands on deck. And when you talk about competence, I think Nigerians should expect that the highest level of education, of competence, of know-how will be brought into the educational sector to revamp this area, because it's quite embarrassing in the global community when you have universities shut and our children are essentially wasting their potentials away. So I'm very confident that we're going to see a lot of innovations in the educational sector under this new government, this incoming government.
All right, let's talk about his appointments for the cabinet that he's going to form, the cabinet he's going to work with. Now, my colleague Veronica talked about the issue of government of national unity and his wanting a government of national competence. And that points to or draws our attention to the kind of cabinet he would like to see or he would like to have that would drive his vision and drive his idea. But how do we balance the issue of those who have worked so hard to ensure that he won the election, and talking about the issue of forming a government of people who are competent? How difficult would it be to balance that?
It's certainly not an easy task. I don't envy those who are charged with that responsibility. But however, again, going by his antecedents, the president-elect is someone that would get the right man for the right job. And also, I would like to believe that in this new dispensation, rather than appeasing political opponents in terms of forming a government of national unity, the priority has to be to kickstart Nigeria. And you cannot sacrifice political convenience for the sake of the nation. So I do believe that there will be a system in place that would get the best man, if you like, or the best woman for the job, or for the jobs that is at hand. Certainly a Herculean task, but I believe that the process is on, and Nigerians should expect a more proactive, a more progressive, a more interactive style of governance, which is what we need at this particular point of our democracy.
Now, the matter of the economy is also an issue of concern. We saw how he turned things around in Lagos State with regards to the internally generated revenue of Lagos State while he was governor. And so a majority of Nigerians are looking forward to what he would do with regards to our economy. Right now, our inflation is skyrocketing as it is. We have seen the impact of the cashless policy on our economy and so many other issues that has to be addressed. What do you expect to see him do, especially when he hits the ground running? What should he address first with regards to our economy?
Right. I believe one of the first things that has to be addressed would be the formation of an economic resuscitation or revitalization team. I know that his experience, his international posture and profile will be one that would encourage foreign investment. I also believe that our manufacturing sector needs a real boost, a real jolt to the system. But in order to have a productive manufacturing sector, you also need the right infrastructure. You need power, and you need good transportation, which is roads and what have you. This outgoing government, I believe, has scored well in terms of road building and infrastructure, going by comparison with other previous administrations. So I believe that the president-elect is somebody that has access to those resources and will utilize those resources for the sake of his new administration and Nigerians in general.
All right. One area that a lot of people don't focus, especially during our campaigns and elections here, is foreign policy. We see how that features very prominently in Western countries when elections, presidential elections come up, and they want to know what the idea or the vision of the candidate is in foreign policy. We don't always focus attention on foreign policy, but we remember the days where Nigeria was highly respected across the world. We knew how that translated to foreign direct investment for Nigeria. We knew the place of Nigeria and Nigerians in the Committee of Nations. Talk to us from that window what Nigerians are going to expect, because when it comes to the president-elect, he's a global citizen. He knows all of these things. He has almost everything on his table when it comes to the knowledge of it and how to go about it. But what should Nigerians expect in that regard?
Well, I think we have to be upbeat. We have to be optimistic. Nigeria, as we know, isn't pulling its weight as the African giant or the leader on the African continent. We've been overtaken in recent years by smaller countries with far less per capita GDP and with a smaller economy. I think the new president, our president-elect, is the right person, or at least is the best suited person to address foreign policy issues. Foreign policy is diplomacy, and also in terms of positioning the country for opportunities. So I'm quite optimistic. I'm quite excited, actually, to see how that's going to pan out. Again, the last few years, we've suffered, in my opinion, with regard to this. But I think with this new optimism, the president-elect will back that up. I'm quite confident of that, yes.
And now I'm talking about security situation, the peculiarities. When you look at the various regions, we have peculiarities of unknown gunmen in some parts of the country, talking about the southeast, and in the up north, we have matters of kidnapping, talking about Boko Haram and all of it. How do you see him addressing all of this security situation, taking to cognizance the peculiarities of each region?
Yes, that's quite a poignant question. Listen, in the first 4 years of Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration as governor of Lagos from 1999 to 2003, and you can fact check this, the security situation in Lagos State was far, far worse. And I know that there was a security trust fund for the state that was introduced under him, and various other innovations that culminated in a total reduction of armed robbery and crime across the state. And by the second administration, the statistics were very impressive. I'm by no means a security expert, but I'm a Nigerian. And security is a concern for every Nigerian. In the northeastern parts of the country, we have all witnessed a series of attacks and news that has become commonplace. But I think that this outgoing administration should also be commended in terms of holding back the insurgency and reducing radically, drastically, improving the security situation in the north. So I believe again that he would employ professionals. When I say professionals, I mean competent people in that field, and also engage other stakeholders so that we can build on, reducing the insecurity to really negligible levels in the country. I have, that's not an area that I believe that this administration will stutter or stumble over. On the contrary, I believe that it's going to improve, again, as I said, on the last administration's record in tackling terrorism and insecurity.
All right, let's talk about agriculture. Now, this topic, or the idea of agriculture, is said to be the part of, it's in the DNA of Nigeria. In fact, since we have embedded it as a symbol in some of our in our national symbol, where we have the green, white, green. That the green represents, the wealth of agriculture and so on, natural resources. Talk to us from that window. He in part of his campaign, he talked about the issue of reviving commodity boards, clearinghouse, and things like that. Recall also in the 60s and 70s, where in the 60s rather, where we had the regional government system, the true federalism, where in the north and in the west and in the east we had different commodities, cash crops, and Nigeria developed and prospered on those grounds. Talk to us how it will be to revive all of that aspect of agriculture that drove the economy of Nigeria to greatness, and if we can achieve that again in the 21st century.
Well, you've already shed light on it. I was going to make reference, for example, to the regional boards. For example, the cocoa board under the Western region at the time of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. You will recall, or if you can investigate, you will see, for example, how the cocoa boards were essentially a co-op system for the farmers. And it worked very, very well. Unfortunately, those things were scrapped, or they're not active again. And you've hit it on the head, specifically and practically. This is an area that the new president is going to go to town on. Nigeria has to look at itself as being a food basket, producing not just for our population, but also exporting. Our over-reliance on oil and gas has essentially led us to where we are. And in the international market, we cannot be relying on just this foreign earner. Agriculture is going to be a priority as well. And we are going to, as the manifesto of our party has already indicated, we are going to assist the farmers. We are going to prioritize the farmers. We are going to make allocations to the agricultural sector. And so that Nigeria will not just be importing food items, but we will be exporting. I think that is a workable program within the first 4 years, and capitalizing on that in another 4 years will essentially change our fortunes to be regarded as a food producer internationally and also domestically as well.
Right. One quick question I would like for you to react to before we let you go is the fact that a lot of parties, some parties rather, are rejecting the emergence of Tinubu as the president-elect. They've taken the matter to court. Even though some persons have seen his emergence as a win for democracy, there are those who are saying that they are not accepting this. They believe their mandate was stolen and so took the matter to the courts. What's your reaction to this development?
Well, you know, I'm a lawyer with over 3 decades of experience. And I've been in the media space in the last couple of weeks post-election. We've been inundated with petitions and statements and all manners of things from political opponents who feel aggrieved. Listen, you feel aggrieved, you know what to do. File your petitions, you go to the tribunal, you go to the courts, and you follow due process. I'm a little bit irritated and tired, quite frankly, about all of these noise in the media space. We have a system that protects the integrity of the electoral process, and you are entitled, you are aggrieved to go down that route. But we must be very, very careful about inciting or misleading Nigerians after a duly conducted election. Even in terms of litigation in law practice, there has to be a time where you stop litigating and you move on with it. So that's my only take on this, because so many commentators have already spoken about this back and forth, and I'm not going to join that money train. On the contrary, or rather, I would enjoin all Nigerians to join hands so that we can move this country forward. That's the only thing that we should be concerning ourselves with after all these petitions and what have you. And in the next few weeks, hopefully that will transpire, and we can get down to the nitty-gritty of fixing this country and running this new government.
All right. We'll leave the conversation here now. Spokesperson, Media and Publicity Directorate, Independent Campaign Council, ICC, Barrister Olumide Braithwaite, thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right.